The building was built 160 years ago. We've repaired it to give it another 160 years of life. And that's incredibly important for us in preserving good architecture.
Elizabeth Tower is the building that holds Big Ben, the biggest of the bells in the belfry at the top of the tower. It was constructed around 160 years ago. It's had throughout its lifetime several renovations from the 1930s to the 1950s, after it experienced bomb damage during the Blitz, and more recently until this project in the 1980s.
It's arguably the most famous building in the UK, and certainly the world's most famous clock tower.
But when you begin to scratch the surface, you really realise that this is a remarkable building, and this is the Victorians firing all cylinders and some of the most incredible feats of engineering that we've ever seen.
The original brief for the Elizabeth Tower project was twofold. One was to restore and repair the clock mechanism and the face of the clock, and the other was to repair some significant damage over time of the actual tower itself. One of the most surprising discoveries that we encountered was the extent of the bomb damage. We had worked on the assumption that most of that bomb damage had been documented or repaired. Quite early on, after the erection of the scaffold, it became clear that the stonework element of the project was much more extensive.
This is very much architecture in that we are trying to prolong the life of the building and to give it more purpose.
A lot of conservation architecture is about doing research about the history of the building and what changes have happened over time that are maybe detrimental, and that gives you a background as to an appropriate context for making interventions.
It's essential that we look after our buildings for future generations. If we don't, they will crumble, they will not retain their glory. And it's really important for society as a whole to recognise its history as it goes forward.
So the project itself is essentially 7 conservation projects in one. That is the restoration of the clock mechanism, the restoration of the cast iron roof and light, the belfry floor and waterproofing layer, the stonework restoration to the trunk of the tower, the internal decorations and plasterwork, the clock dials themselves and the stone flangeal panels, and the insertion of a new lift and service floors within the vent shaft.
Bringing together a number of heritage trades and skills such as gilding, stonemasonry, glazing, to marry the modern techniques with the ancient and traditional techniques that were needed to restore the tower to its former glory.
I think the most interesting conservation was the clock dials, because of the visual change, but also the work that went into ascertaining exactly what the colour scheme should be. Elizabeth Tower was the last building that Augustus Pugin designed before he died aged 40. So one of the things that's really motivated us and excited us about the project is reinstating the original Pugin colour scheme, which is the Prussian blue and gold that you see now, which wasn't reinstated in the 1980s.
We'd promised that there'd always be one dial on show as long as the restoration was going on. And then for a couple of days, we actually had both dials revealed, the old black one and the brand new blue one.
As the scaffold slowly came down and everyone could see the works that had been carried out, I think everyone understood the amount of time that it had taken to produce the result that we had in the end.
And just the reveal of the dials, that was absolutely incredible.
It's really about sort of interpreting and complementing the original vision for the building. More than anything else, we've looked after Pugin's building.
The clock itself was taken apart piece by piece and lowered down the weight shaft within the centre of the tower, and then taken up to Cumbria, where it was put back together again and restored. When we came back, the clock pieces themselves were taken up in the new lift, where it's reassembled in the clock mechanism room.
The renovation helped us in a couple of ways, really. One, it gave us a lift, which for the last 18 years we've been walking up 334 stairs to get to work in the mornings. And we got good, stable electricity. We even got Wi-Fi up here as well.
One of the most interesting personal memories I had from the tower is my wife and daughters visited London. They were doing sort of the tourist things that they could do at the time, and I was on the clock dials. And I remember my daughter shouting up at me, "That's my daddy up there." And she has a very loud voice, and everyone in the street could sort of see. Yeah, it's a particular fond memory. I think that really sort of shows what it was like for us working on the project. The fact that you're very much in the public eye and everyone's sort of looking up at what you're doing. There's a real sense of privilege and of responsibility in working on the tower. Everyone really, really wanted to do the best possible job that they could.
These projects are a really great opportunity to protect, preserve, enhance some really historic crafts. A lot of our partners who we've worked with on the project, they range from Lothian in Scotland to Cumbria to West Yorkshire to South Yorkshire to Lincolnshire and other parts of the country as well. So it's a really great opportunity for something like this to have an impact far more broadly than London.
So that sort of sense of pride and craftsmanship ran through everyone who worked on the different parts of the project.
From the way in which they've used modern materials and glass to open up the lift and the belfry, to the gilding that is outside, has been quite impactful in terms of how the tower is now experienced by the public.
From a visitor experience perspective, which is really important for Parliament, it's massively enabled us to open up access to the tower and more areas of it.
And one of the successes of the project and one of the original aims is making it easier to visit the tower. It's everyone's clock tower.